Hello and welcome. A special welcome to all the students from the Europe Hotel School joining us. You're all preparing to manage the hotels of the future, right? But what happens when those hotels are these beautiful historic buildings with, let's face it, pretty old infrastructure? Well, today we're going to dive into how smart technology is turning those exact legacy challenges into some seriously future-proofed assets.
All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First up, we're going to really dig into the core problem that so many older hotels face. Then, we'll look at this new industry mandate for agility that's completely changing the conversation. After that, we'll get to peek under the hood and see how these smart systems actually work. And finally, we'll get to the good part, the incredible payoff, both for the guest and for the hotel's bottom line.
So let's start with this central conflict, heritage versus inefficiency. I mean, think about the most famous hotels in the world. So many of them are these gorgeous, historic landmarks. That history is a massive part of their charm, their whole identity, but it also comes with some serious operational headaches hiding just behind those beautiful walls. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. That beautiful, historic architecture that guests absolutely love, turns out it can be a real nightmare for modern energy efficiency. These buildings were just designed for a totally different time, long before we were thinking about things like carbon footprints or getting the temperature just right. And this is where it gets really interesting, because this isn't just some abstract back-of-house problem. It's something the guest feels directly. Have you ever had that experience? You walk into a grand, beautiful hotel lobby, and it's absolutely freezing. But then you go up to the mezzanine bar and you're starting to sweat? That's not just a fluke, it's a symptom of a much, much deeper issue. So here's the bottom line. A guest's discomfort is almost always a direct result of the building's outdated tech. It's kind of like trying to control the temperature of an entire house with just one single thermostat in the living room. That's basically what these old, rigid systems are trying to do. They just can't deliver that zone-by-zone, granular control that a modern hotel really needs. Okay, so this brings us to a pretty fundamental shift. We can't just keep putting band-aids on the old systems. We need a completely new way of thinking about a hotel's mechanicals. What we need is agility.
And this idea right here really frames up the new standard perfectly. It's a concept you all at the Europe Hotel School London are already familiar with, service agility. It's this principle that a building's systems, its heating, its AC, they have to be just as smart, just as responsive, and just as adaptable as that 5-star concierge you have at the front desk.
So the big question is, how do you make a 100-year-old building agile without, tearing down walls and doing a massive, super expensive rewiring project? Well, the answer is a really clever piece of tech called a cloud-based BMS overlay. Just think of it like this. You're not replacing the building's old wiring. You're giving it a brand new wireless brain that just sits right on top of the system that's already there. So, we've talked about the what. Now let's get into the how. How does a smart system like this actually transform a hotel's day-to-day operations? Well, the secret sauce, really, is predictive AI. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds super complicated, but the process is actually surprisingly simple, and most importantly, it's not invasive at all. It really breaks down into 4 steps. First, they place small wireless sensors all throughout the property. Second, these sensors are constantly streaming data up to the cloud. Third, and this is the magic part, an AI analyzes all that data to predict what the building is going to need. And finally, little smart dampers inside the vents make these tiny, automatic adjustments to the airflow. And I want to be clear, we're not talking about your basic thermostats here. These little IoT sensors are gathering hundreds of data points. Yeah, they're monitoring temperature and humidity, but also things like CO2 levels, which is a great indicator of how many people are in a room, and even light intensity. They're building this incredibly rich, detailed picture of what's happening in every single zone of the hotel. All of this incredible data flows up to the building's new brain in the cloud. And this, right here, is the absolute game changer. Instead of reacting to a problem, like a guest calling down to say their room is too hot, the system uses predictive analytics to anticipate what's about to happen. It's proactive, not reactive. Here's a perfect example. The system knows the weather forecast. It knows that a wall of west-facing windows is going to get blasted by direct sun at 3 p.m. So before those rooms even start to heat up, the AI is already directing more cool air to that zone, completely neutralizing that temperature swing before a guest even has a chance to notice. Now that is true service agility. So what is the bottom line here? Let's talk about the payoff.
Because this technology isn't just some cool gadget. It delivers real, tangible results that have a direct impact on the success of the hotel. Of course, for any hotel operator, any manager, this is the ultimate question, isn't it? A perfect guest experience is the goal, but it has to be sustainable. It has to make financial sense. So, what does all this do for the bottom line?
Well, the number is pretty staggering. We're talking about a 30% reduction. By being incredibly precise, only sending conditioned air exactly where it's needed, when it's needed, hotels are seeing their energy consumption just plummet by at least 30%. That is a massive operational saving that drops straight to profit.
So, the crucial point is that this isn't an either-or kind of thing. You get both. You deliver a superior, consistent guest experience by getting rid of those annoying hot and cold spots, and you get a dramatic reduction in energy costs. Plus, and this is so important, because the system's brain is in the cloud, it's constantly getting smarter through software updates. You're literally turning a static, old building into a living, learning asset. And that really leaves us with a final thought for all of you, the next generation of hospitality leaders. As you step into your careers, this is the question you'll need to ask of the properties you manage. In an era of smart technology, it's no longer enough for a building to simply react to problems. The future of hospitality belongs to the buildings that can learn.